employees' contribution to CSR. I am Nirupama, Managing Director of Ad Astra Consultants. Many of you here would have attended our earlier sessions and you may be aware of what Ad Astra is all about. I thought I'll just take a few minutes to introduce Ad Astra for all the newcomers into this webinar because I see a lot many people who have registered for this particular session, which is also very encouraging since it's on employees' contribution to CSR. Ad Astra is a women-owned organization. We provide bespoke solutions in the recruitment segment across the globe. We work with about 35 countries and we have offices pan-India and Singapore. The good news is that we are opening a UK office next month and which will also cater to the European market. We have had several awards which was for very different reasons. Some of them have been bestowed on the directors, but one of the most prestigious awards that we got was from Oxford University, and we got recognized as the only, they published this as a case study, and we were the only firm from India who got featured in that. So that's a cap in Ad Astra's, that's a feather, sorry, that's a feather in Ad Astra's cap. So moving on to talking about today's session, there's so much of talk about the employer's contribution to CSR, right? And we thought we will look at it from the other side as to how employees can volunteer and contribute and make a difference and create new meanings for themselves and to the organization and the community at large. So today we will discuss about how to create awareness amongst the employees to contribute and also the significance of that impact. I think that is very critical. In my very personal view, volunteering is not the importance of doing something, but it's to doing something from a freedom to do something important and more impactful. I think that is very critical from an individual's perspective. And today we have two very distinguished panelists, if I may say, stalwarts in their own industry, in their own domain. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Meena and to Rekha. The panelists will throw some light as to why it is beneficial for employees and the organization to work together to make CSR goals a reality. That's going to be the subject of this discussion. Both of them are very well known in the industry. They don't need an introduction. We have also circulated a profile of theirs, so all of you have a copy of that. But just to give a very brief introduction, Meena has been a proponent of empowerment approach rather than a charity approach, which is very key. Perhaps Meena, you must be one of the first people who would have introduced that. And she's been working for more than 3 decades with several organizations, both government, and a large part of it has been with the GMR Varalakshmi Foundation, and she continues to consult and advise them. Most importantly, she writes for children, and she's written about 40 books. And I highly recommend you all to check her out. She may look old with salt and pepper, but then you must read the books to find out how young she is. And 40 books is not a joke by any standard. So Meena, hats off to you. We will keep it for another session as to how you managed to do 40 books and how you went about writing that. And to talk about Rekha, I think very, very unusual for a chartered accountant to get into CSR. Unless you're really, really passionate, I don't see any reason why you would have got into CSR. And Rekha heads CSR for BP India and also for Castrol India. And she's got immense experience in the field. And she's done a lot of work on the sustainability of employee contribution. So I think both of them have very, very different experiences. And I think the audience will enjoy talking to the both of you. She's also a recipient of the Sabira 2018 CSR Leader of the Year Award. And congratulations on that, Rekha. I think I would love to have more chartered accountants come into the CSR field, and I'm sure Meena will agree with me, because you'll understand the numbers, you'll understand the impact. So, it's a very defining thing for the CSR industry to have people who have a different knowledge from an overall financial perspective to enter this market. So, just to give an understanding to the audience, I think over 45 minutes we will have the session, and the last 15 minutes we'll keep it for question and answers from your end. If you still have further questions which we are not able to answer during the session for want of time, you all could just write in, and both Meena and Rekha would be more than happy to answer those questions for you. Without wasting much time, I'll straight get into the session. So I'll start with Meena. Would you want to give your opening thoughts, Meena, and employees' contribution to CSR, and then we'll move on to Rekha with the same question.
Right. Thank you, Nirupama. Thank you, Ad Astra, all of you. And thanks to all the participants. I'm looking forward to a very spirited discussion. Employee, if you look at the scenario about 7-8 years ago, before the law on CSR came in, the Companies Act, volunteering was a very key part of how companies looked at CSR. They saw it as a big opportunity for doing something good, for involving employees, for getting employees to connect with the community, connect with each other. That still continues. And it is growing, of course. But what has happened in India, unlike in the rest of the world, in India, the law that has come in, the Companies Act, and all those who are familiar with the CSR Act, will realize that the law makes no mention of employee contribution or volunteering as a desirable goal. So somehow nowadays, when Indian companies talk about it, they are so worried about fulfilling the requirements of the law that this sometimes gets pushed to the background. So an opportunity brought about by the law it does not tap into this particular aspect. So companies who are doing volunteering continue to do it. But the companies who have newly joined the fold of doing CSR because of the Act, this has got missed out. That is my feeling. Though on the other hand, you have a lot of agencies promoting volunteerism. Somewhere it is falling out of the mainstream. That is my thoughts initially on this whole concept. Thanks.
Very, very good insights on that. Rekha, over to you with the same question.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with Meena that, in terms of volunteering, the focus is now on CSR, mandatory ensuring the compliances, and therefore, in terms of volunteering, especially for new organizations, people moving in and coming into it is difficult. So the approach that we have looked at is how can we embed employee engagement into our CSR programs per se. So our CSR strategy is typically around creating, it's aligned with our business objectives. It's aligned with our group's sustainability framework, and of course with the national agenda. That's very important. So while we have all the three of it, it also gives an employee an opportunity to be part of it because it is a part of the business objective. So if I have to give an example of Castrol India, our flagship programs, which is the Castrol Sarthi Mitra program for truck drivers, or the Castrol Eklavya program, which is for upskilling of mechanics. Here the beneficiaries, the truckers, the mechanics, they are both a key stakeholder or key partners in our business objective. So this gives an opportunity to the employees while they interact with them in the business front. It also gives them an opportunity to work with them closely and make a difference in the personal life. So we are looking at how can we embed employee volunteering, rather I would call it as engagement, more and more into our strategic CSR program to have more involvement of the employees. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful to hear both your thoughts. And that reminds me that when we started Ad Astra, in a very frivolous way, we made Jan 22nd, the day we started, as a Ad Astra Day. And we said we'll go and visit the NGO, which is not well funded, and we will serve. So initially we did for several organizations, and over a period we are kind of dovetailed to one organization for every sector. Initially we contributed to our time and efforts to old age homes and stuff like that. At some point of time, we took it on to say we will deal with children. I have had several of our employees come and talk to us as to what a difference it's made to their life and how happy they have felt to contribute. It's not necessarily the money, right? Because we can always write a check and that's the end of the day. And I suddenly realized that one day in 365 days, we volunteer our time. When you all were telling me, it just struck me. When we were doing it, we didn't even realize that we are spending one day of 200 plus people spending is almost 200 days for to the organization to whom we contribute. So it is, I think we need to be mindful of volunteering too. That's, I think, is an important point that both of you have raised. So with that, Meena, you raised an important point and you have done several CSR activities, right? Over so many decades. And I just wanted to ask you, how did you get employees involved in the company's effort to contribute?
Right. From my experience, volunteering is also kind of something if employees see that the top management sees this as an important agenda, that trickles down very effectively. When I was working with the GMR group, the group chairman, Mr. GM Rao, was the one personally pushing this agenda. He himself was very hands-on in terms of getting involved and, in community activities. And he made the message very, very clear that, it is very important to him. And in fact, the group has 7 values, which the whole functioning is underpinned with, And one of those values was social responsibility. So that's the kind of importance the owners and the promoters and the management gave it, which then trickles down. And then it is up to us as professionals to find ways to hardwire it into the system and to create the opportunities. So for instance, about a couple of years ago, we'll talk about maybe rewards, recognition, all of that. But we actually came out with a policy which allows 16 hours per employee contribution of the organization towards volunteering. So I think it is a push from the top and then kind of, the professionals making it possible to contribute in a certain way.
So which means it's 2 man-days in a year for each employee. And that's at least to begin with, that's quite a lot.
That's huge because if you're talking 5,000 employees.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really huge.
Wonderful to hear that. And Rekha, I just wanted to check with you as to how do you engage employees for the CSR program in your firm, and what is the kind of response you have got from the employees?
Yeah, so as I said, because our programs are very strategically aligned, our employees as part of their day-to-day interactions have engagements with the beneficiaries. So coming back to my favorite example of the trucker program and the mechanics program. So for example, we have a supply chain team, which work with the transporters, which work with the drivers. So they actually bring in these mechanics, they kind of network in their transporters and the drivers to encourage them, bring them to our program and be part of the program. Similarly, we have different functions and teams who try to work with their beneficiaries and try to bring them into our program. So as CSR, as corporate office, what we do is we enable our employees, we provide them with information about the kind of programs that we do. So we have typical skill training program for the mechanics. It's a 60 hours of certification course that we provide. And it's NSDC approved course. So it actually helps a mechanic to be completely technologically updated and they see a good value in the program. So the employees kind of propagate it among their mechanics whom they are in touch with. So our sales team work very closely with us. They bring in more of the beneficiaries. So what we have seen is that together we are able to co-create and bring in, work together. So the employees also hear the impact stories from the beneficiaries, and they feel that, they have been able to contribute to make a impact in the life of this beneficiary, which encourages them, and they kind of support more and more into our programs.
And this is initiated from the top in your department. How does it?
So we don't have a push mechanism. We rather believe in a pull factor. Of course, there is from the top, because in our the group sustainability framework itself talks about, we have got 3 focus areas. One is about net zero by 2050, helping the world get to net zero. The second is about care for planet, and third is about improving people's life. So within the top, in our objectives, the sustainability framework itself talks about having your community engagements, and they kind of say that it's the purpose and aim of the organization is also to go beyond businesses and help communities. So that's definitely there. But at the same time, we believe that can we actually work with the employees to make them aware of the program, to make them feel that they want to be part of it. So it is difficult. See, when there is a push, it kind of, people want to come in because they've been given that 2 days to kind of, leave their work and come and participate. But in our case, that's not the case. They have to do it along with their work. So it is challenging for the employees to take their time out. But what has really helped is because they are always in close contact with the beneficiaries, they find it possible to kind of engage with them and bring them in. So this pull factor has helped. And I would say that it has taken us some time. It's almost now 3 to 4 years now that since the program have started, and our employees have started to get engaged, and they find that they are able to kind of create a better value proposition for the beneficiaries as well. So they have, now I can see, I'm really happy to say that in the last 2 years, I've seen our employees really come up with new ideas, new suggestions on how we can participate together and kind of make it a real success for the beneficiaries.
So you talked about the 3 aspects. Can you just give us a little more explanation as to what you will do under each of these 3 aspects?
Yes, so this is in line with the BP's new purpose and aim, where BP is it's an integrated energy company internationally, and BP in India, Castrol India is a part of the BP group. And as part of the overall purpose and aims, we have come up with the sustainability frame, which talks about the 3 focus areas, which is about being a net zero company by 2050 and helping the world reach there. So which is about helping to have access to cleaner energy and being able to have affordable energy, clean and affordable energy across. That's one of the key pillars. The second pillar is around the care for the planet, which is around the biodiversity, water, human rights. And then we have the third, which is around improving people's life. So this is the framework under which our business operations and at the same time our social investment programs will globally rest in. Picking up from there, in India, what we have done is our focus areas, therefore, are on skilling and education. We are into safer mobility and access to clean energy. So these become the 3 broad pillars under which the different organizations of BP in India works in. And we are into various businesses. Castrol being the lubricants company is the oldest brand in India. We have got the oil and gas. We have got, that's the upstream business, which is in a joint venture partnership with Reliance. We are also into the fuel retailing, again in partnership with Reliance under the GOBP brand. That's it. And now, very recently this year, we have a knowledge center, which is housing around 2,000 employees, and this knowledge center is set up in Pune. So currently we have almost 1,000 employees have already been onboarded. In the next few months, we should be able to have more than 2,000 employees who will be supporting financial and HR related solutions for across the BP group globally. So that's the kind of strength that we are looking at. And these 3 focus areas is what all our programs in BP India will be looking. So skilling, safer mobility, and access to clean energy. that is how it is. And my endeavor is that, we are able to create a program, show the impact, and, kind of encourage employees to be part of it. And yeah, so that is it. I can talk more about it as we move forward. Yeah.
Wonderful to hear your thoughts on that. I'll move on to Meena now. Just wanted to understand how can one involve employees more into CSR activities, and in your experience, how did you do that? Also, are there any metrics to measure their participation? Because you've done it over so many decades. You've done it for perhaps your own organization and for organizations outside. And you have seen it from both sides, working for an organization and from a board level. So you've been an influencer, actually, in many ways, right? So would you want to talk about that,
Right, yeah. Very key questions. And, it is a struggle, as Rekha has also said. It's not as if, you get the amount of volunteering that, you would like, in a sense. And it's not because people don't want to volunteer, but the kind of, stresses of work and everyday life are so difficult. If you then ask them to volunteer on a Sunday, that's kind of, too much. In fact, our group was headquartered in Bangalore till, about 5 years ago. And we have smaller operations in many, many places, like, rural remote areas, a power plant somewhere in Maharashtra or Orissa. And then the group headquarters moved from Bangalore to Delhi. When they were in Bangalore, the amount of volunteering was so high compared to when they moved to Delhi. And, even though Bangalore is a difficult city, I think Delhi is an even more difficult city. So things like geography, local travel, the stresses of traffic jams just takes away. It's very difficult for people to volunteer, and we must respect and recognize that. So how we tried to get more volunteering was, apart from, policy push and things like that. One is, of course, you have to keep on communicating about the opportunities that are there within the CSR program. But those are limited. If 50 people decide to volunteer for one training program that you have, you're in a soup. You can't handle it. So we created another mechanism, which is like a competitive proposal, right? So a group of employees, at least 3 or 4, have to get together, and they have to submit a proposal on the area of their interest, as long as it does some good to society. Because another factor that we realized is that, the organization itself has certain trust areas. You may say health, you may say education, but we may not have explicit program in, say, working with differently abled children. That might be somebody's passion, visually handicapped or, mentally challenged. That could be the thing. But the CSR program of the organization was not allowing for that, because that was not a trust area. So here we said we open it up. Within a period, you come out with a proposal, and we also made it a little HR thing, in the sense, we will give more weightage if you're working in a team across departments, across hierarchies. Bring in your family members. Design a project. You have seen a problem that touches you. Design a little project which you can complete in 3 months with X number of volunteering hours minimum. Say whether you will also, and the organization will give you 25,000 rupees to do that project. And say if you will bring in more funds of your own, or you will gather more funds. And it is competitive. Every quarter, we used to pick the 10 best project submissions. Do it on your own, where you want, how you want, for whom you want, what you want. And there used to be a committee, or there is a committee of senior people. Because senior people don't have time, but we wanted to keep them informed of what's happening. So you'll pull in the president of this, the CEO of that company, the CXO of this, put together a committee of 3 people, let them select the 10 and give out the grant. It's almost like a challenge. So it becomes, something that you're competing for. It is your own and you're proud of. So that was one of the things that we tried, always usually very successful. Regarding metrics, difficult, very, very difficult. We tried to measure, we would ask for number of beneficiaries in any program that you did, what changed, but that change was not measured professionally. People would only state it. And of course, the number of hours. So these were the kind of metrics we tried to maintain in all our programs. So yeah, I don't know if that answers everything.
Was that metrics used for any purpose, or just you were kind of assessing how much of time is being spent?
It was more my evaluation. When I, for instance, in my personal KPI or my balance scorecard, I had to say, I commit that I will ensure so many hours, so many employees, and this increase in volunteering. So it was very important. And my team scale. More than for the individual, where it was a softer kind of recognition.
You made a very important point, Meena, in terms of saying you not only involve the employees, but also the extended family.
Yes.
So what are the challenges you faced, and did it actually benefit, or were there challenges in terms of family getting involved? Did some people drop out? Would you want to throw some light on that?
Again, in Delhi and all, it was difficult, but there were some absolutely fascinating ideas that happened. For instance, out of our talking to families on volunteering, when the group was in Bangalore, there was something called a Seva Kitty that many of the ladies formed. So instead of having a regular kitty party, they would contribute for a cause. And then they would go out and spend the money in an activity. So they would say, this orphanage, I'm going to, we are going to organize food for one day. So there would be no kitty in the sense of this thing, but that was so absolutely fascinating ideas like that. There was, in smaller towns, we found, where there are these colonies and plants and all, typically there's not much. The wives are all extremely educated. They were in professions when they were in a city, then they had to move to a small place. So we saw a lot of energy and professional capacity coming in. For instance, in one of our project areas, both in Orissa and Maharashtra, we took them to Anganwadis and did some programs for the capacity building of those workers there. Then we in the foundation got left behind, and these women just took it up and they transformed, like 15 Anganwadis in the area without even, they just tell us once in a while, yeah, we're going there. So the ownership was so immense. But yes, there'll also be some, initial sparks of energy and going down. But some of them sustain. Yeah, so as in everything else.
Did you see a difference between volunteering for rural areas versus urban areas?
Definitely. I think it's just the kind of, as I said, the time availability of people. And also, when I think Rekha also made this point, for instance, when you're running a power plant in a rural area, you have to interact with the community. Your workers come from there, you draw your resources. So the connect is already there. And when you get into a CSR mode with the villagers around your plant, it takes, it has its own positive impact on the plant business functioning itself. It just brings the company and the community much closer. So yes, faceless, anonymous urban enterprises are more difficult.
Wonderful to hear that, and very insightful also. And I was wondering if there would have been any difference at all, urban to rural, and you brought that out, and that doesn't come as a surprise, because different people view it very differently. So yes, since you had immense experience, I thought the audience should get some understanding of how it works. Before I move to Rekha, just wanted to tell the audience, feel free to write your questions, and so that you can start writing the questions, and we will come back to you maybe another 15 minutes later to kind of look at what answers the panelists can give. Just moving on to Rekha. So in today's world, Rekha, people write emails and say this is the program and expect people to understand that you all are doing this kind of CSR work. I know many of them, forget about CSR work, there are official mails, many of them don't read, right? Most people may read a WhatsApp message, but not an official mail. And I think today, most people don't even have the patience to read the complete mail if it is not pertaining to them in that sense, right? So how do you go about building awareness for the CSR CSR programs that you run for your organization? And what are the methods by which you really kind of ensure that it gets ingrained in the system so that employees are more aware? I'm sure you are using not just mails, but there are different ways of doing it. So would you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I agree with you. Sending out mails and newsletters is something that we started with, and finally we stopped it because, like you said, it really doesn't make a big difference. Talking about it in your regular town halls or your business updates, your monthly business updates to the organizations did help a bit more. But what I really found as a success formula was one is having a co-creation approach. So whenever we would want to start an activity in a community or even within our flagship program, we would have a focus group discussion where we would actually call the employees to participate in it and come up with their views and ideas. And this is an approach we have taken for our flagship program as well as for our community development programs. So we have this co-creation process where we have employees come in, the NGO partners coming in. So the employees will give their thought process because they are more business oriented, they understand what is efficiency, productivity, and then you have NGOs on the ground who comes up with the social concern issues, the human issues. So we bring them together, we listen to them, and we as CSR team is a catalyst, and we also have to think from the compliance perspective and ensuring the white space between business and CSR. So the three of us together, we come, we involve, and we kind of design the project and implement these projects on the ground. So what happens is that when an employee is part of the whole thinking process, thought process, not only that they've understood what is happening on the ground, but they also have the urge to participate. They also kind of get in more of their colleagues to be part of it. And they also see as to how we can, while we are doing our work, can we bring those components into the program. So an example of this, which we very nicely adopted, would be the truck asanas. This is something which our marketing team had created as an asset, as part of their product brand marketing asset, where they actually worked with the Yoga Institute and identified what are the health issues of a truck driver because he's driving for long hours. How can yoga support them to have a better long-term health issues can be solved? And they created a few truck asanas which can be done by the drivers either in the truck itself or while they're taking break for food and rest. So it was actually a marketing asset, but we saw value in it. So our employees who were part of the co-creation program, they brought in these assets into our program. And they said, why don't you distribute it to all your drivers? So as part of our CSR, we touch around 40,000 drivers each year. So we just kind of took it and I've got results from our impact study, throws out reports saying that the truckers really love it. So that, in fact, our session is more about road safety training, being how can you be safer on the roads, how to ensure peace and calm while being road and all the safe behaviors. But while, of course, that is important, this truck asana has really picked up much more. People are talking more about it, they're practicing it, and they have literally adopted it. So I think that's one example of how employees are bringing in value add into the program. The second thing is, like Meena mentioned, in the community, since we have a plant and we work closely with the community in the plant, our employees engage a lot with the family of the community, the children, or with the tribal community there, and support them in whether it is skilling, awareness. So as BP group, safety is one of our core values. And we believe a lot in safe practices. Not just about whether it's road safety or whether it is safety within our business compound, but also we talk a lot about the safety at your homes. So these are something that we take it to the family members. So we have this annual family connect events where we call the beneficiaries and the family member, the children, the wives, all of them participate in these events. So that is where even our employees come in here and they talk about what can be done better, and how can we, so there's a lot of exchange of views, ideas, And I think as you do this more and more, and as you do this more often, it becomes a habit, and employees start looking at this as part of their daily routine, and start absorbing it within their culture as well.
You raised a very important point. In fact, I was about to ask you, but you answered that question, which is if employees, families are brought in and they are going to talk about that, I think it will have a huge impact on people who do not want to volunteer also to come and volunteer, because there will be people who will proactively volunteer, and there need to be people who need to be pushed into, or they need somebody else's example to follow. But if the families come and talk, then it authenticates what you all do in many ways, and that would have a huge impact. So your job may become easier by a simple event where people come and express what they have done and how it has impacted their own lives, I suppose. Wonderful, wonderful to hear that. And Meena, this question is for you. How can companies encourage their employees to volunteer? What are the things that companies can do? Because today, I think one is to send mails, one is to announce, one is to do other things. But at a very deeper level, what is it that organizations can do?
Yeah. I think we've mentioned a few of those: a push from the top, a policy, facilitation. I think creation of opportunities. Because very often even the CSR department is not very clear, how do I really engage these people? And like internships in India, volunteering is also not very well structured. So, okay, somebody is coming, spending the day, what does it actually mean? So I think for the CSR group or the NGOs that they are working with to actually be able to tap into the, strengths of the volunteers, have a system so that both are, the needs of everybody is met, that the community is actually deriving a benefit, that the volunteer is feeling satisfied, and some work of the CSR department is getting, it's not an additional burden, but a supporting hand. So I think for CSR departments or foundations to introspect and see how to do it is one thing. The other is to catch them young. The younger employees, the employees who are just entering the organization, I think it's very important to reach out to them, because they have the idealism, they have the energy, they have the time, much more than, if you're the VP or something like that. And if you can set the culture and make it a practice and a habit, I think that does help. Rewards and recognition, very important. And then, at the department level, organization level, for somebody to be called out and said that, they've done a great job, always, I think, is something very nice. So yeah, I would think some of these ways.
In your experience, have you seen only large organizations do CSR, or even smaller organizations encourage on their own? Have you seen examples of that?
Yes. I think a lot of small organizations, in fact, as a bonding, and it's also easier to kind of share values across a smaller organization. And as it grows larger, okay, you have your metrics and your systems and your templates in place, but I think somewhere the spirit is lost. Whereas in a small organization, it's very deep and intense. And I think the peer, I won't say pressure, but the peer influence is very high in small organizations. So when they see that, 10 people are going, another 5 will join.
No, very interesting, because we are in some ways smaller organization, and I have noticed many of our employees, they keep the t-shirts. They kept the t-shirts that we have had over the last 14 years. And I was asking them why. So one of our employees from Delhi, he was telling me, I have kept them very safely because each one has a story to say.
Exactly.
It's not wearing a t-shirt and having the Ad Astra logo. He said, every time I look at this color, I know in which year it was given and it has a story to say. And I'm able to recall. I mean, what an impact. What you think as a t-shirt that's distributed. But if you do it with a purpose, it has meanings to different people. And that's wonderful to hear. That more and more smaller organizations who are listening in this session would also get encouraged. Because most people think it's only for larger organizations. It's a misnomer. People think the larger organizations have money to contribute, and also many people don't realize that however small your impact is, you just have to make the difference, right? So it starts small and builds on. It doesn't have to be how small or what level you're in the organization, and it doesn't matter how much of money or how much in kind or how much of time that you're contributing. As long as you're contributing and making an impact, I'm sure it will build on the organization, on the people, and on the community. So that's wonderful to hear, because you would have done that a lot with several organizations. And I'm sure people who are listening would gain a lot by what you said. So, Rekha, just moving on to you. Or when employees participate in CSR activities, uh, is this a management decision? How does it really work?
So as I said, it is not a push, so not really a management decision as such, but we have our management is very much aligned with our programs. We have our senior leadership visiting our programs. They interact with the stakeholders, and they do have a complete an idea of what's happening on the ground, and they do participate in the program. So it's not very much driven by the management, but they're very much aligned about what we do and how we do it. In terms of employees, I would say is that they do take their own initiative, and each one have their passion. So people, not necessarily everybody wants to go to the trucker or with a mechanic. They will have their own individual passion. Somebody is very passionate about safety, somebody is about children, education. So what we try to do is create those opportunities and provide that opportunities. So we have identified certain NGOs which are, in the area of various volunteering activities. So it may be environment, it may be education, skilling, and we kind of throw this to all the employees and for the families. Typically, in terms of budget, also it's not about money. There is not you don't really need a huge amount of money to kind of run these programs. So we give this opportunity to employees to participate, and they can now, because it's a virtual world, we try to see how employees and their family can participate in a virtual mode, whether it is mentorship, coaching, or training. I would say that the number is great, because in such times people are themselves going through a lot of stress, whether it is work related or otherwise at family. So I would say that I have seen a little lesser amount of focus on volunteering in the last 1 year or so. But before that, yes, teams would come together. This is a very good team building exercise as well. So, you would have teams from different functions coming together, and we would go to a school to do something, or, the joy of giving week is celebrated. Employees will participate and the other thing is during the pandemic or during some calamities, you see people come back passionately to give back to the society. So the payroll giving then kicks up immediately. So we have seen that whether it is during a flood situation or during the pandemic, you have employees who on their own would just come back and say, we want to support. What can we do? So at such times we say, okay, this is the activities that we need your help on. This is the kind of contribution that you can make, and they kind of support. So it's not really about management doing out there anything, but of course the management will call about it, talk about it, recognize those efforts. That's, I think, what our senior leadership supports us in. And we as CSR team, we provide the necessary opportunities and financial strength that's required, and the teams drive it. So we have team members in our sales team who are very passionate about road safety. Suddenly they'll call and tell me, we have a group of women bikers. Can you arrange a two-wheeler road safety? So two-wheeler road safety training is one of our programs which we run in Mumbai for the youth in colleges. We have a sales team member from Pune calling up and saying, can you help facilitate this? So we would just do it for them, and then they run it by themselves. So we have very limited interaction out there. So it really works. It employs their passion, and we provide the necessary support. And management, of course, will help us by giving their blessings in terms of decision making and so on.
Very good. Nice to hear that. So, Meena, just wanted to ask you, do you all really see that there is a direct impact on the employee morale with the CSR activities? Um, have you seen that in your experience? Would you want to talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. I think, one has to get into the mind frame that, volunteering, in a sense, we do it, if we come to it, that it will bring some benefit to the community. But believe me, it actually brings a lot of benefit to the individual concerned. A change of the way you look at life. Very often, young people would go out and say, oh, we didn't know that government school children studied under these conditions. Or, that they don't have a toilet, that these girls don't have access to, basic hygiene. And I think a sense of gratitude of the blessings that life has given you definitely does come in, and that changes you as a person. I think the other learning is that, there is a kind of work that you can do in a hierarchy. In an office, if you say this, it is done and it is whatever. But you can go to the community and talk about behavior change. Wash your hands before COVID. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. You'll go back 3 months later, nobody is washing their hands. Why? So you start thinking of what are these things about? What is communication about? Or how do you make it effective? Or how do you actually bring about a change in real life? So I think a huge, learning in planning how to do and bring about a change. Then these cross, team projects, which CSR volunteering is often about, huge help. And I think always it brings employees closer to the organization when they realize that the organization is trying to make a difference. It's not just concerned about profits, but the very fact that you have a CSR program, that you're encouraging employees to go out and make a difference, brings about a bonding with the organization. I think it gives employees more respect for the organization when they realize that it is beyond profits. So on the whole, what volunteers and organizations get from a volunteering program may be a little more than what the beneficiaries themselves get in some ways.
No, wonderful, wonderful. Last question to you, Rekha, before we move on to the questions from the audience, is that do you all assign weightages during your annual appraisals to employees? Is there some way of recognition?
No, so we don't really do that because, as I mentioned, it's not a part of the KPI. It's purely voluntary. People who are driven by passion, who want to participate in it, to see them participating more into it, and those who cannot and don't want to, for whatever reasons, we need to do that any which way. So we really don't have that as part of our ratings as such. And in terms of calling out and recognition, we do that in a very CSR way. So we would have our beneficiaries create a thank you card and just give it to the employees, which kind of makes them feel emotionally connected. But like Meena mentioned, these opportunities actually give an employee to feel really happy and proud. So they feel humble, and at the same time, they feel self-satisfying. They feel happy to be part of an organization which is doing good in the community and which is thinking beyond business. An organization which is environmentally conscious, which really want to work for the benefit of the community. So I think the overall morale of the employee also enhances as they get deeper and deeper involved in volunteering activities or even into the CSR programs. So yeah, so that is how we are trying to kind of, give back to the employees rather than through the KPIs.
It is more to encourage and empower them rather than kind of monitor it whether as they're doing that. It's an open thing for them to take it on. Wonderful. We have a lot of questions from the audience. I'm not sure we can answer all of them. Let me read out a few of them so you all can answer. What is the potential role for intermediaries to enable CSRs help execute the employee volunteer programs? Any one of you can take the question. Meena, you want to take?
Let me go first. And, there are a lot of specialized agencies in India, including, say, somebody like I Volunteer, who actually come in and tell the corporate, we will help you structure your volunteering program. So there is a potential for that. But some corporates do it on their own. I mean, in GMR Group, for instance, it was a joint effort between the CSR team and the HR team to actually set up systems. So I think it works both ways. In the US and all, there are professional volunteering agencies. India also has some of them. So that's what I have seen.
Rekha, you want to add to that?
Yeah, so there are many agencies which are also coming up with digital platforms for volunteering, which I think is also a very good step, because that's actually giving employees a lot of opportunities to do various things while sitting at their home. And so I think if we, at least what we do in Castrol is we have identified these kind of few agencies who are providing volunteering opportunities, and we offer it to our employees. And as a part of our BP group, we have this process where BP reimburses, or rather matches the contribution to that NGOs. So that is something also that we look at. Yeah.
So one of them have asked a question saying, I would like to understand whether steady competitive tension is seen as challenge to implement CSR. It's a beautiful question.
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand it though.
So basically, the question is, I would like to understand whether steady competitive tension between employees is seen as challenge to implement CSR.
Definitely, as in all else, there is, a little, for instance, when we came out with this, that 10 projects will be selected, everybody wanted to, kind of have their project selected, and, plant heads or department heads would say with pride, 2 of my projects got selected. Did any of yours? Kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it does give a little edge to it.
And as long as it's positive competition, it's very good. I think, absolutely. Yeah, that's very important. Otherwise, if somebody...
Competition to do good is a great thing.
Yeah, that has a huge impact. And the negative can also have a huge influence in a different way. Somebody does something in a rural area and says, I didn't even have a place to sleep, and then comes back and makes a big noise. That could also have an impact. But it's a good question. It's a very good question for people to understand. You want to share your thoughts, Rekha?
I think you want to say is right. There are competitions, and it's kind of motivate people to bring in more ideas and more inputs out there. The only thing I would always see is that the reputational risk, if there is something that one should be very careful about, and on the safety measures. If people are doing anything, if employees want to volunteer, the safety in whatever they do is very important.
The next question is how to track the volunteers' strengths and weaknesses, and how do we allocate volunteering for the next event?
We didn't really, many of our volunteering tasks were generic, but we did have specialized volunteering. For instance, the safety department of the airport would do safety training for skill trainers. So you draw upon their subject expertise, or the finance team would do financial, literacy kind of thing. So we did try that, but a lot of the volunteering was generic. Coming to adding on to what Rekha said, we also had a code of conduct for volunteers, so that because tomorrow anything can happen. Suppose we would warn them, for instance, don't take a tuition. If you're taking an after school evening tuition, make sure there's another teacher or a parent there. We don't know what's going to come up tomorrow. So and also a little orientation. So I think those were the things that we did.
You want to add anything to it, Rekha?
Yeah, it's good. I think it is about employees ensuring that the subject expert being part of the program is very important. So, for example, if you're doing a drug-related program, I would reach out to the supply chain team. If we are doing something for the mechanics, we would take content from our marketing team or from the sales team. Financial literacy, we go back to the finance team. So I think if we can identify the subject matter expertise in each of our function, and then they can, the technology team, the safety team, I think each and every team in the organization have their own strengths, which they can bring into the volunteering, and they can help and support the community.
Thank you. The next question is, in today's scenario, how do you propose an involvement of an employee in CSR's activities? I suppose what they mean is during the pandemic. I'm assuming that. So I think you mentioned something, Rekha, on that. You said coaching and mentoring, which one can do online. Is there anything else specifically that's available in a pandemic situation?
So in the pandemic time, my suggestion would be that, we shouldn't encourage any employees to go out on the ground and do anything. You're causing more harm than doing good. Absolutely. So you need to be indoors. And while that said, you can definitely reach out to the community and to the beneficiaries in a virtual mode. Whether it is about mentoring, coaching. We had something as simple as COVID hygiene practices. This is not something very difficult to talk about. So even, to talk about that, you can do it over your call, you can do it on a WhatsApp. So I think engaging virtually with the communities in this pandemic time is the best way that one can look at supporting. Creating an awareness about vaccination, the need to vaccinate, and also to, you can help them as to how they can enroll themselves on the, app, or the Arogya Setu app or whatever, if there is a support required. So these are small things which we are trying through our volunteers to support the community. You can look at these things as well.
Wonderful. The next question is, how does the participation vary when you move up the levels in an organization? Or does it vary at all? It's an interesting question.
Very interesting question.
Yeah.
What I have found is that the top and the senior management, CXOs, heart is there, time is not there. Youngest lot, time is there, heart is there, they do participate. We often ran into problems at the mid-level. The guys who had to give the permission to their juniors to take time off were usually the people who probably were answerable to their boss for deadlines, right? The CEO can say, yes, you must go and volunteer and be engaged and this and that, but he will ask for the results, right? And this poor mid guy is the one who has to deliver the results. So we found that mid-level to be a difficult barrier to crack.
Was your experience different, Rekha?
Absolutely same as what Meena is saying. I think it's also because the mid-level management are in an age group where you have responsibilities at your home as well. So you have your office to manage, or you have your home to manage. So you don't want to participate in the volunteering initiatives. But having said that, I have still seen people, whether you are in the senior level, mid-level, or junior, it's just passion. So the people of the younger crowd is more around peers. So if you have your peers, your friends out there, chalo, let's go, is the attitude. But as you go up the levels, it is more about passion. And you've seen that individuals with the passion, they do try to bring out that time and work on it. But having said that, I agree, the work challenges, family challenges, and I think all of those are pressing things which come in way of your volunteering.
Several more questions, but I think we will hold off. We have a minute to go. So I think we will send you the questions. You all can answer them and we can mail it back. I just wanted to have your closing thoughts on CSR volunteering by employees. We'll start with Meena and follow it up with
Sure. I would just say that, as a CSR team or an NGO, we have to be innovative in creating opportunities. We also have to recognize that, volunteering, interest in volunteering will wax and wane, and we can't hold it against anybody. In a sense, I may have some target to fulfill, but people have their realities, and we just have to go with the flow, make it a positive feedback loop, and try to create innovative opportunities.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Rekha?
Yeah, I think for me, the take is that corporates must see how they can embed volunteering as part of their overall CSR offerings. And they should also look at it as a team building, as a tool to have your employees be more, involved with the organization. So if you're looking at the employee volunteering as an extended arm of your CSRA, definitely it will benefit all of us. And for the employees, I understand it is a challenge, it is difficult, but I think it's also our responsibility to make some time and give back to the society. So either it is financially or physically by being part of any mentoring or coaching. But I think we all should get involved and be out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Meena, I thought you only write books. I didn't know you were an astrologer who predicts how webinars go, because you said it will be a very spirited and animated conversation, and it was. It was. So you can add one more book can write about this, to saying how you predict things. But then on a more serious note, I think it's been so wonderful to have you both. One, the people by themselves, right? The both of you. The next thing is that the kind of depth of work that you do may not necessarily have an impact today. It could have an impact for a lifetime. I think that's what people tend to forget. And for all the participants here and the audience, I think what the way I look at it is, like I said at the beginning of the session, is that volunteering is not the importance of doing something free. Most people think it's doing something free, pro bono, But I would think, but the freedom to do something important and impactful. I think that should get instilled in people's minds for them to do something at a depth level. And I think when you serve others, it energizes you. I mean, it's a very strange thing. You think if you have more money, it'll energize you. Actually, it gives you more problems, because you have to keep thinking where you'll invest, what you need to do. But the moment you serve, I think it energizes you personally. And for all the people who've been on this webinar, thank you so much for sparing time. And also, I think thank you for your questions. I think there were some really wonderful questions for the audience. And those that have not got answered will definitely get answered and will be sent to you. We have the seminars twice in a month. And please register yourself, and whichever you think is appropriate for you all, please do attend. And I personally enjoyed talking to the both of you. It was really fun, and more importantly, I think Meena, when you said the direct versus indirect impact on employees' lives and also metrics, I think it kind of brought to the fore that we are spending 1 day in a year. We will try to extend it to 16 hours. Yeah, I think that would be the achievement. This and they don't have to do it through the organization. They can do it. But we can monitor. We don't have to have it as a KPI like you all said, but we can monitor and we can have different award schemes for that. And we promise you, because both of you have such experience, and almost all our employees are listening to that. So I say this in the open. Thank you very much for agreeing to be on the panel and contributing meaningfully to this webinar. And thank you all the attendees. Thank you very much. See you all in the next.
Thank you, Nirupama. Amazing opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.